All right, welcome back to the video. And as you can see, the board is coming along and it is exactly 4 foot by 4 foot. Um, Again, some of you might notice there's this whole trench line on one side of the board and not on the other side of the board. But that's because, for the most part, especially if I were going to play a pickup game, I would be playing from this end to that end. So both sides would start in control of a portion of the trench. Both sides would start with quite possibly, their own little trench system with uh, uh, positions there, and then of course we've got our rough terrain and all of other terrain that could be put down. And yeah, I think that would be pretty fun, actually, especially Heretic Legion versus like New Antioch or Trench Pilgrims duking it out in the trenches on this side, trying to capture objectives and stuff. Um, Now, I am, as I've said, a total noob at this game. And some nice guy from Dice something, I forget the name, I should look it up, I'm lazy, did point out to me, because I was questioning, ways of building armies. And this guy was going off to point out to me that the most army you can build sorry, I was looking for paints, in any particular game is 10. You can get more as games go on if you play a campaign, but then they end up going into reserve, and then you're still playing with 10. So I should have already known that, being a relatively hardcore Frostgrave player that I am. That's how Frostgrave works. And it makes sense. It's a good rule. I like it. So anyway, I keep losing my necrotic flesh. Isn't that like the weirdest thing to lose? Necrotic flesh. And the reason I'm like, why do I keep losing this? Is because I want to paint up all these zombie dead corpse things that are hanging off these crucifixes and stuff. And I've got corpse pill, but really that's for painting elves and stuff. That's not really. Oh, by the way, this is an alternate sculpt, but this is basically where I'm going with my communicant for the red. Let's put it in the middle and see if that focuses. Yeah, look at that. For my all red Trench Pilgrim army, like here's a guy. I've already put some rust on them and stuff. I need to do more details on the belts and everything, but like here's a guy with flamethrower. You see what I mean? And of course, the crosses and stuff on their shoulders I can do. I can add other crosses and just really, really amp them up. But so if you tell me I can have 10 guys for an army max, right? Well, first off, I'm going to have to take the Trench Preacher. So here he is. He's got a pistol and a Scourge/Flail, which might not be the most powerful weapon, but it does give him a bonus to hit. And he's got, his speakers and all that. So this guy's like 85 points, and then he's got like 10 points worth of weapons. So he's pretty cheap. And then the next guy that is an absolute must for this army is going to be the Castigator. I mean, you got to have a Castigator, right? So he's nowhere near done. I need to paint his face. I need to shade the shield. So much I need to do on that guy, right? But let's say that's 200 points. So for a 700 point game, I could literally field like 7 or 8 troopers with bolt action rifles and flamethrowers and Molotov cocktails, and then have money left over. So, it's still a thing I'm thinking of, but another problem is this is a custom model. It started out as one of Gamza's Brides of the Emperor, and through a bunch of cutting and glue work and whatever, it's slowly becoming a stigmatic nun. So, you can see where the rust shade I put on it kind of bled over into some of the flesh, but that's okay. That's okay. I wouldn't mind fielding a mess of stigmatic nuns with my army just to, like this one, because I didn't want it to be too X rated. I put a scroll across the front from the flagellant box set. And yeah, she might end up in the army too. I don't know if I take 1 or 2 of them. And, one of them's just all melee weapons, and the other one's got pistols, which can be used at range or in melee. So, pretty good stuff. Looking forward to it. Do I want to pay the 100 points for that big communicant? I mean, having that communicant follow the prophet around, I mean, that is a way of letting people know that if you run up here and F around, you are definitely going to find out. And, now, as far as all the news about how terrible the creators of this game are, I don't at all doubt that. I mean, these guys might be your typical idiots. I've heard people talking about how they were trying to argue that, the forces of hell were actually the good guys in the game, and that, Christianity was the bad guy. Those kind of people, you're going to find, those are the same kind of people who are constantly, see, I'm throwing away a X-Acto knife blade, and how I do that is I shove it into the styrofoam so that nobody gets cut. Safety lesson for you. Those kind of people are the same people who want trans and gay space marines and all that sort of stuff. They're not fans. They're anti-fans, They're the kind of people that show up into a game community and then run it. And it's my hope that the creators of this game are smart enough, regardless of their political affiliations and what they believe, etc., are smart enough to distance themselves from the weirdos and keep their mouths shut and sell the game to everyone who wants to play it. That is my hope. Right now, they're not giving me a lot of hope. And I'm sitting here thinking, I've got all these armies, one from every faction except for the Black Grill, which I'm not a huge fan of. Maybe I would be a fan of it, but it would have to be like if I played it with a bunch of undead troopers, like, plague zombies led by, a Knight of the Order of the Fly. That would be cool, but a lot of the figures that the Black Grail army has in them do not appeal to me. And I say this as somebody that has a massive Death Guard army, both 30K and 40K, even though I'm in the process of negotiating the sell of the 40K one. So for New Antioch, I might go super elite with New Antioch and just freaking 3 of these bad boys right off the front. You see what I mean? Like this guy changed the weapon out because I'm always doing weapon swaps. Um, so it's just something that I like to do. And I'm even doing a weapon swap on one of the Hell Knights. Snapped his weapon off, and I'm probably going to put the flaming sword from the Warhammer Wizard box set. I've got a few of them laying around that I never used. Now, right now, I'm just letting the rust and whatever soak in, and then they'll get a black streak wash, which is like an oil wash. And after that's dried, they'll get dry brushed up just a bit to bring out the details, but still make them look hellish and whatever. And of course, if I'm playing the 7-headed serpent, I mean, 3 of these is a must. So I had to print these 3 guys out. I mean, who would want to even play that army without 3 of these guys? I don't even know. No matter whether you take a sorcerer, which just got done cooking in my UV box. I've got my sorcerer right here, right? He could be the leader of the army. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 assorted yoke fiends, because why not? Whether I use them or not, it's still kind of cool to have 6 assorted yoke fiends. In case I want to play, like, again, a couple of elite guys and then a horde of just, as many of a horde as you can do with 10 points. But, yeah. Now, I am printing out a Praetor and even more Yoke Beasts. I don't know. Something about the Yoke Beasts is like, to me, it's so typical of, to me, the whole idea of hell is best encapsulated, really, by Yoke Beast and Wretched. And I feel like the creators of the game wouldn't have been too far on the bad side of things if they had made the hell armies have to have a minimum of X amount of Yoke Beasts and Wretched. Just because, right? Now, Yoke Beasts, they're not great, but, then again, they're not super terrible. Probably an even match for most of your average trench crusade troopers. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good, like, thematically, a good fight would be your super zealous, dedicated to Christ trench pilgrims versus literal half-breed demon things. So I'm liking that. But now getting back to the politics. Here is an issue. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If any of you bros out there that are a little bit more like into the thing, like if Scanner Darkly ever sees this video, or Scanner Barkley, the thing is the game they created and the miniatures they created are so reliant on Christianity. And say you're a non-believer and you want to call it Christian mythology. Okay, fine. I'm willing to concede that. But that doesn't change the fact that this game is, whether they like it or not, almost purpose built for people of a certain political and religious bent. And now, will I play a demonic force, just because somebody needs to, etc.? Yes. Yes, I would. If that's what needs to happen for a game, and they're like, look, I want to play my new Antioch. How about you try something? I would do it. Not sure my heart would be into it, but I would do it because, I don't take this seriously, the game. But I do take my religion very seriously and my strong religious conservative views very seriously. And I think a lot of other people like me are the same. And denying those people um, a fair shake and the ability to play the game and everything like that, I think that's just a bad move. And as somebody who would like to see the creators of this game straighten up, get out from under their demonic liberal influence, whatever their problem is, and make a successful game, I'm just hoping that they'll realize what they have before it's gone. Because I mean, the fact that they fled to Blue Sky, they need to come back obviously to Twitter and interact with the people they don't necessarily personally agree with on Twitter. That's something that as a game company they need to do, you know? Because Twitter has so much better reach than Blue Sky. And they made $3 million. That's good. That's good. But that does not guarantee that a game will last. It does not. And if they're going to make themselves the enemies of 50% of the player base, probably less, because players for some reason tend to lean left. I've talked about that before, like whether it has something to do with living in a fantasy land or, whatever their problems are. Yeah, players tend to lean left. So, as always, as a business, your best bet is to lean neutral, right? Make the game you want to make. And if people complain about it, let them complain about it. Like I complained that they misquoted scripture. Okay. They know. Good. And that's the end of that. There's nothing more to be said. They misquoted scripture. I posted, hey, you misquoted the scripture. You shouldn't do that. And then that was the end of it. So, yeah, they need to toughen up. They need to realize that they are going to get pushback when they do things that are blatantly anti-Christian, anti-conservative, and therefore the best course of action, and I know I'm repeating myself just using different words, but the best course of action therefore would be to not take a side, just make a really good game, that makes sense. And I mean, the premise of this game is already like, it's already foretold anyway. Like, unless these guys are going to try and tell us that the demons can win, which we all know they can't. And by we, I mean believers all know they cannot win because the outcome of this war has been determined since the beginning. The only thing that the forces of hell can do is try and lead as many humans astray as possible in the hopes of harming God. But even though they might hurt God and make, the carpenter weep, that does not mean that when Gabriel blows his horn and Michael hits the ground, that they're not all done, because they will all 100% be done. The war will be over. The Archangel Michael will whip every one of their asses, and that'll be the end of it. And that's just what the vast majority of people believe. Christians and Muslims, and Jews. So all the Abrahamic religions believe this, that when it finally comes time, God will unleash the second coming, and the first thing will be, Gabriel will play the horn, and then we'll go through the tribulation or whatever, and then Jesus is going to come down, and that'll be the end of it. So ultimately, in the long term, yeah, the forces of hell cannot win. But, sometimes it might be fun to play, the blatant bad guy. And one thing this game has going for it, even though, I've heard people have tried to argue otherwise, is there's really no doubt who the bad guys are. It's like, there's no doubt. The bad guys are obviously the minions of hell, because, who would even think otherwise? If you're dealing with two armies, and one army is a bunch of zealots from, Moravia or the Empire of Russia or something, who have been God touched and decided they're going to march halfway across the world to fight in this massive war in the trenches, or the other side, which is so wicked that the goodness has been burned out of them, and they literally consort with Cambians and such. There's not a lot. The only gray area is the Iron Sultanate or whatever, which I think is just another aspect of hell, just because of the way their army functions with their homunculi and, Solomonic magic, and, the Iron Sultan with two horns pointing to the sky. Come on, two horns. What are you doing? There's not a lot of ambiguity here, and that's good. That's good. It's every game doesn't have to be this big battle about, oh, I've got to make all these moral choices. Every game doesn't have to be like that. Some games can just be simple. Some games can just be about, good versus evil. And you might have somebody that's, they, for whatever reason, choose the evil side, not because they're evil, but just because they like to paint them and they think they look creepy and ooh, and they do. The sculptors of this game did a really good job at making the forces of the Inferno look like forces of the Inferno. Gotta hand it to them there. But anyway, so you see what I'm working on. I now understand that you've got a 10 unit or 10 figure max. So I must have missed that. I don't know how, but then again, I'm not perfect. And I admit it, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm reading rules. I'm looking at things. One thing I kind of wish is, if this game survives, if the creators manage not to bury it with their stupidity, I would almost kind of like to see a second game that, instead of being a skirmish game, was kind of like a platoon level game. So you would have like 3 squads with lieutenants and maybe a captain, it'd have to be simplified down from the current rules, but an actual war game where you could field armored vehicles and artillery pieces and stuff like that. That would be pretty badass, I think. As you can see, I have dead tanks as terrain, where I 3D printed out, like, World War I tanks. You can see there's a big hole in the front of it. The skeletons are kind of hanging off of it. The turrets here. That's one thing I learned when I was in Iraq. I don't know if it's the same for, Renault tanks. But in Iraq, anytime we hit a Soviet designed tank with like the TOW2, the turret would always pop off. So that's why both of my wrecked tanks have the turret popped off, because from my actual, experience, that's just something that happened. But yeah, fighting across this thing, rushing from, this area into I mean, just, I'm pretty stoked about it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I can't wait till my brothers figure out what they're doing. Like Hungar's playing already got his heretic army. I don't know what my other brother's going to go in for. And of course, I've got like 3 different trench pilgrim armies, because, not going to lie, the trench pilgrims are the coolest. In my opinion, the trench pilgrims are almost like the Imperial Guard of the game. And I have 5 Imperial Guard armies. So far, I'll be selling some of them, I think. But just the idea of normal men and women who decide because they get a vision or a message from a saint, or maybe even the J-Man himself, and they just pick up whatever they can, and they go into the hell that is, this war, and just do the best they can. I mean, that to me, that's like so like inspirational. It's like we all would hope, and this could be a thing that might get me banned if I were on their Discord, but I ask you this, and share this around and link it to them. I mean, make this video very popular with the people interested in this game, because most of them probably don't hear the conservative side of why we're attracted to this game and why we would love this game. They've heard the art side, because I've made that argument. The fact that you can just do whatever you want. I mean, that's amazing. You can create armies out of anything. But they haven't heard the fact that the battle between good and evil is very iconic, and it's something that appeals to a lot of Christians. One, because we believe it. We believe that currently on this planet, right now as we speak, there is an invisible war going on between good and evil. And the prize is you. But like I said, in the end, the forces of hell lose. But if you yourself are burning in hell because you failed and got tempted or whatever, then doesn't help you much, does it? You're screwed. And that makes the enemy happy. So don't be a person that makes the enemy happy. Be a person that makes the carpenter happy. And everything will be better for you. Okay? I promise. And if you're one of those people that's like, I'm a skeptic and I don't believe, I would just say to you, look, let's use the simple argument. A lot of people have made this argument, and I'm going to make this argument. If I'm wrong, I'm going to die and rot in the ground, and the worms will feast on my corpse and get big and fat, and that'll be that, right? But if I'm right, so just do a little math and realize that your best bet is aligning with the forces of heaven while you still can. Because once you die, no matter how prideful you are, and remember, a lot of people don't like to remember this. I'm going to get a little religious here, right? That voice in your head telling you to hate God and that Christianity is evil and responsible for so many slavery, blah, blah, blah. But you never complain about any other religion or non-religion that did slavery. It's only Christianity you complain about, right? That voice is demonic, and it's trying to keep you away from Christianity because you're probably a person that's kind of on the borderline, maybe, and you're thinking, you might, given the chance, take yourself right down to the nearest Orthodox church, talk to the priest, and then next thing you know, you would be a Christian. And those voices in your head that hate Christianity so much that you're hearing, you have to understand that there is a chance that those are not your voice, that there is something vile and evil in your head trying to convince you to damn yourself, because that is their job. That is their one and only purpose, is to convince humanity to damn itself, so that in the end, when they are all cast into the eternal flame, they can take as many of us with them as possible. That's winning for them. Okay. The fact that they will be punished and cast into the eternal flame, they already know that's going to happen. So there's nothing for that, right? The great deceiver and his minions, Shaitan, if you want to call him that, whatever, they already know they're going to go to that place. There's no doubt in their mind. The goal is you. You are the goal. I repeat myself because it's important. And I've said this in many videos because it's important. And people need to realize their value. You are the reason for the war in heaven. And in a way, that means you are the reason for the war in Trench Crusade. Right? And that's why I think they need to add a mechanic where if you're playing heretics or something, you should get more points if you actually capture your enemies. Like knock them down and then run up and tie them up or something. Like the Dark Elves had that ability there for a while. Because then you can drag the soldiers of Christ back to Inferno in Jerusalem, and maybe just maybe torture some of them to the point that they're willing to reject Christ. And that would be a win over just martyring them and sending them directly to heaven. So, but then again, I think I'm thinking way deeper on this subject than the actual creators of the game. I don't think they thought so deep about it. They were just like, hey, I drew a bunch of art, mostly inspired by the Polish artist. I think his name was Brzezinski. And then some other guys like, hey, I can make a rope or a board game because, I made more time and let's get a bunch of money. But again, if they pull the fascists need not play this game, blah, blah, blah card, they're just going to end up pissing people off who aren't fascists and end up with a, much, much lower player base. And as somebody who likes this game, I don't want to see that. Does that make sense? Are we on the same page there? I would like to see this game do well because it's an interesting game and it could be even better. It could get even more interesting. There's so much that could be added. There's so many different war bands that could be explored. There's so many different figures that could be created or whatever by the forces of hell, and unleashed on mankind. There's just so much that could happen. And I would hate to see the creators of this game shoot themselves in the foot over some leftist bullshit. Because let me tell you, all of the leftists that are out there singing your praises for behaving the way you are, they're not going to buy your game. That's a proven fact. We've learned that with Warhammer. They'll whine and bitch about trans and LGBT space marines, but they're not the ones dropping $1,000 on an army. So I'm just hoping that the people who are in charge of this game are smart enough to realize what I said and not get hung up in the I need to virtue signal to this group, which is ultimately and a very, very small fringe of a group, like the kind of idiots that hang out on Sig Marxism or whatever. And they will kill your game if you let them. If you let them, they will kill your game. They will destroy your community. And then there you'll be. So again, creators of this game and all the guys making miniatures for this game and alternate sculpts and shit, heed my words. Heed my words. If you follow that flute, the Pied Piper far left politics, it will hurt you in the end. And I don't want that. So let's not do that. That's what I got to say in this video. So peace and love. God bless. And if I didn't see you in this video, I'll see you in the next one. Maybe. And if you found anything interesting or enlightening in this video, comment, like, subscribe if you haven't. And most importantly of all, share. Share it everywhere. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Facebook. Share it on Rumble. Share it everywhere you can share it. Share it with your grandma. Share it with your priest when you go to church. Share it with everybody. Send it to people that you don't like even. If you are on the Discord for this game, share it there. Or at least point out that it exists. You can even say I'm a crazy conservative Christian spouting weird views, and maybe they'll get some eyeballs over here. And maybe if those eyeballs understand what I'm saying about the health of the game and, the players of the game, etc., maybe we can actually make this game big as a group of players. Otherwise, I'll end up just writing my own lore and playing the game with my own little group of friends, the 6 or 7 of us. And if the company that creates it dies, it won't matter to us because, we don't need them. But that doesn't mean I don't want them to succeed in the long run. So, yeah. Peace and love. Let me get this uploaded.